I think we're live. What's up, everybody? Yep,
Hello,
the timer's running.
Testing,
Hopefully, you
testing.
guys can hear us. I didn't check our headphones before we started, but if you're hearing Aaron coughing, you know we're here. So, still trying to kick that congestion weeks later. But guys, we have friends with us tonight. We are looking forward to this one. Let's go ahead and take ourselves off solo layout so we can introduce everybody.
Let's do it.
You guys know we do picks with Joe from the Maumee Valley Whiskey Society, the S&W MVP picks, and this is a collaborative pick with the Bourbon Judge.
What?
And all these beautiful people that you see below us here are Stuff and Whiskey, Maumee Valley, and Bourbon Judge community people, except for that guy down here, which he should really be up here in the pole position because he's the real superstar of the show
can I
here.
Move him?
No, don't move him.
Oh,
you're gonna mess it up.
I just did.
You're gonna mess my order up.
Okay. Sorry, I moved him.
All right. So Nick Taylor is here. If you guys have been around the channel for very long, you will know my self-professed love for this man and what he creates.
I'm sorry, Josh.
Yeah. I mean, he's a magician when it comes to whiskey. That's all there is to it. And if you tasted any Found North, you know that. But if you haven't tasted any Found North, we're going to walk through. We've got 5 samples in front of us, and we were talking a little bit backstage. This is going to be a very interesting pick. And about this time last year, we did our first Found North pick, us and Joe from Maumee Valley Whiskey Society. And that thing, I don't even know that I've told you this, Nick, but that thing was a huge hit. We went to so many different barrel picks, and either myself or Joe brought our bottles of that.
Shares and stuff.
Or no, we went to barrel picks, but you go to barrel picks and then you bring bottles with you to share in the hotel after the fact. And like, we literally had people stopping in their tracks, walking through hotel lobbies, like, what's going on over here? And then they see the bottle share and they're like looking at all the bottles, and we're like, don't even know them, but we're like, yeah, come on in, taste this, taste that, whatever. And I'm not kidding you. And Joe will literally back me up on this. The amount of people who had never heard of you, and I'm talking the table's full of amazing bottles, and they tasted the pick that we did with you. And they, like, we had people saying, this is my favorite thing I've ever tasted. Like store owners that do picks themselves.
Oh yeah.
And they tasted a ton of stuff that day off the table, and they loved what you did. So,
and for months after that pick, after it sold out, because it sold out in like 3 hours. We had people in our local area trying to find it on like the secondary markets. Like,
oh wow.
It. Like, no, nobody's selling it.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
I do know one person that did track down an additional bottle from somewhere. I don't know. I don't know how you got this, but they got it. Yeah.
I have your pick. I have your pick at it's on my shelf upstairs, and I dip into it. It's
so good.
Killer. Yeah, that was an amazing pick. That was a really fun pick. I'm excited for you guys to get into these samples, because I'm not going to shade anybody's opinion, but I have a few favorites in here that I'm super excited for you guys to taste tonight. So
cool.
Awesome.
It'll be fun.
Very much looking forward to it. So as we get into this, guys, we will individually talk about glass by glass. You talk backstage, we have an order to drink here in, and yeah, that's what we'll do. We are going to, as we all kind of get into it, feel free to nose and taste whatever you want. We will be starting speaking about barrel 36. So definitely focus on that sample first. But if you want to get into some of the other ones as well, definitely feel free to. But as we get into this, Nick, if you could tell us, one of the more interesting things you guys do is how you do your barrel picks. Like, what does a single barrel with Found North mean? And it's one of the more interesting things, and it really does harken back to what I've always said about you guys. What Found North is about, like, the end product is really, really good whiskey that will completely surprise you. But what the company, I think, is really about is craftsmanship. Like, you guys are craftsmen when it comes to this stuff. So fill us in and refresh us if we already maybe know, but fill us all in if we don't know about how you guys do your barrel picks.
First of all, this introduction, like, can we just sign off now and just say this is it, right?
Peace out.
You guys have been, you all have just been such incredible supporters of us, and my hair's kind of standing up when I say it. It really, I can't tell you how much it means to us. I know it sounds like lip service, but seriously, like from the bottom of my heart, it really means the world to me. And I'm so excited to have all you back. You know, Marcus, Joe, it's fabulous to see you guys again. And I'm excited for tonight. I can't wait. Okay. All right. So, I think everybody in here knows that Found North is Canadian whiskey, but if you don't, we make Canadian whiskey. And the really interesting thing about Canadian whiskey and how Canadian whiskey is made is the idea of Canadian whiskey is to give a lot of the flexibility and the flavor creation and almost like the flavor composition to the blender. And the way they do this is rather than do like a typical mash bill like we do in the States, they do 100% corn, 100% rye, 100% wheat, 100% barley. And they ferment, distill, and age them separately, and then allow the blender to blend them at the end, which, to be honest, was like one of the main reasons that a bunch of American guys are making Canadian whiskey. We just love the amount of control that it gave us. However, it's not super conducive to your classic way of making single barrels, which, in the States is basically like, here's a barrel, buy the barrel, bottle the barrel, right? Pretty darn straightforward. Canadian whiskey, if you did that, you wouldn't get good whiskey. I don't know how else to say it. You basically would just get one layer of flavor. The point isn't to make a complete whiskey. You would just get 100% corn or 100% rye, and you'd be missing out on a lot of things. So when we decided we wanted to do a single barrel program, the way we did it was we said, okay, well, what if we create a blend first that uses and incorporates the grains we want to use at the ratios we want to use? Then we'll recast the entire blend into a bunch of different finishing barrels. So for us, what we ended up calling this was each original blend is a quote unquote season. So the first batch of single barrels that we did was season 1. And it was a rye blend. So the first barrel you guys picked was a rye that was 66% rye, 30% corn, 4% malted barley. When we made that, honestly, like when we made that back in December of 2021, we didn't know that our corn dominant whiskeys would become as popular as they are. We made that at the same time we were making, I think it was batch 3 and 4. So like at the time we really hadn't made very much whiskey, and we knew people loved batch 2, which was, corn dominant. But we still thought of ourselves as primarily a rye whiskey company. And so we made a season, a blend of rye, and then we recast it into 18 barrels. We further matured all of those, and then we started releasing them as single barrels. After that program kicked off, we had like people pounding our door down, asking us to make corn single barrels. So corn dominant single barrels. And we had huge demand for single barrels. And so we wanted to do a couple things. One, we wanted to make a bunch of single barrels, obviously. And so we made 2 seasons at the same time. We made season 2 and season 3 at the same time. But when we made season 2, we intentionally used a lot more new wood than season 3. And the idea was that season 2 would sort of come ready earlier, or some of it at least would. And the idea was with season 3, it would do better aging for a longer period of time. So I'll stop there and make sure everybody's like, any questions? Have I made sense so far? Is this all ringing a bell?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the process, but yeah, if anybody does have any questions, please feel free to ask, because they do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing we love about doing the blend is, before the finishing casks, is we get to control the starting point of the maturation, and that's really fun, right? It isn't we're not starting from like pure scratch. We're starting from a certain point in time in the maturation process. So when we design the blends, we design them to have what we would say is like room to grow into the wood profile. And that's cool because then you can take the same starting point and put it into a bunch of different wood types and sort of see how it starts to sort of diverge from barrel to barrel. So you guys have, yeah.
Did you guys have a so after your success with season 1, did you have a strategy for season 2 and 3 as far as the finishing barrels, like ones you wanted to target?
Okay, it's a great question because yes and very much no. Yes, in the sense that we had an idea for what we wanted to do. No, in the sense that the first batch of barrels that we received, we had to reject a ton of them. And what's interesting about wood maturation is for a very good reason, people really are drawn to certain types of barrel finishes, right? People love port, or they love new wood, or they love whatever they love. And I get that and I appreciate that. But more important than the wood type or what the previous spirit was is actually the quality of wood when you get it. And particularly with wet casks, the longer they spend empty. So if I like age port in something and then I dump it out and then I fill, I wait 6 months and then I fill it. In those 6 months, the wood completely deteriorates. The time between fills is actually extremely important. The time between dumping a barrel with whatever it had and filling it with the whiskey you want to put in it really matters quite a bit. And so when we originally did it, we had an idea. We were like, okay, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna get a bunch of these types of barrels. And then the barrels showed up, and 44 of 48 of them were crap, and we had to reject them and send them back. And so what we did after that was we actually started getting much more meticulous, going to the barrel brokers and examining the woods, the different wood types in the different barrels themselves, and then immediately filling them so that we were basically having no lapse between when it was emptied and when it was filled, if that makes sense. Yeah. So originally we had an idea for it, and like all things, our well-laid plans blew up in our face. So such is life.
So did you find,
Nick, quick? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Oh, Nick, so you said that you the first time you rejected like 44 out of 48. What caused you guys to reject the 44 out of 48? Like, was it different things, or was it just like, one particular thing?
Yeah, some of the barrels were damaged, and so you're just like, that thing's gonna leak. Literally, gotcha. Like the structural integrity is not gonna be good. If the hoops are loose, right? Okay. Like you're sitting there going, okay, this is gonna be a problem. Part of it is pure structure, right? You just look at it and go, this barrel's not gonna hold together. And we've had I'd say 3 or 4 leaky barrels over the last couple of years. And the problem is, like, what the hell do you have to put the whiskey immediately in, you end up with like half a barrel of liquid that you have to immediately put in plastic. You don't have enough liquid to fill a new barrel. You're just sitting there kind of sitting on your thumbs. I mean, we have a bunch of whiskey that I swear to God, we're desperately trying to figure out what the hell do we do with this, because it got 3 months into the maturation, maybe was halfway done, and then the barrel was losing, an inch a day for a week, and then you're like, oh crap, okay, now what do we do? And it's hard to catch. It's not an easy thing to catch.
Josh, he's got some whiskey he doesn't know what to do with.
Yeah, exactly. We'll figure it out. It'll get drunk. That's for damn sure. No. And then,
so did you find?
Sometimes it was the smell. Sometimes the barrel it starts to get a funky smell to it, and you go, okay, this has been drying for too long. Also, they warp as they dry, right? So it like.
True.
Yeah. So
did you find it difficult over, especially the last year, in sourcing those kind of barrels, like right away after being dumped, when when kind of barrels were hard to get all over the place?
Yeah. So I thought the whole barrel shortage thing was BS. It wasn't. There was a really tough shortage, and it was both hard and expensive to source good wood for sure. But it's gotten a little better.
Well, based on the nose of the first three and the taste of the first two, you did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What you'll notice is we leaned new wood. We just the thing about a new wood cask is if it gets lost in transit for a month, nothing happens to the barrel. If you have an ex-sherry cask and it gets lost in transit for a month going through customs, in that month, God knows what will happen to it. And so the thing we found was that we were much safer with new wood, and we designed our blends to take new wood well.
Mm-hmm. So what are you guys thinking? What's some of your comments on the? I'm assuming you're a couple into it now.
So I have, but before you start commenting, I just two quick little logistics items. One, do you guys want to know what the seasons are? And two, do you want to know which season is which and what the finishes were? Or do you want to just do it blind?
Not yet. I personally would prefer to wait till the end for that.
That's totally fine. I just wanted to make sure.
Is that cool with you guys?
Just make sure. Oh yeah, this one's this. Da 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 da.
Joe, I want Joe's input. Joe, what are you thinking so far, Joe? You look like me. You've had a couple. What are you thinking so far, Joe?
Joe, tell us what you think about the first glass. Let's kind of go round robin on the first glass and see where everybody lands on that.
So the first glass, I was thrilled with right off the bat. I was getting a lot of more of kind of like the delicate, more honey, not quite honey hard candy, but like honey candy with some dusty wood notes on it. And then kind of darker in the finish. I was getting a lot of graham cracker, honey, dusty oak kind of vibes. But after I went back to it, after tasting 2 and nosing 3, I picked up a lot of like mesquite smoky notes on the nose. And anybody who's ever been around me drinking whiskey knows that's my absolute favorite note to get is like a mesquite barbecue smoky note.
Wait till you get to 5.
Oh.
Judge, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, no, I agree with Joe. I think the only thing that I get additional, in addition to what Joe mentioned, is almost like a caramel covered strawberry kind of a note in this one. This one reminds me a lot, honestly, in many ways, of Peregrine. So I'm already kind of biased in my mind, but so I'm trying to like hold off and like, all right, there's 4 other selections here, but this is amazing. It's a great start. It really is.
Yeah, honestly, my real first impression was this is better than any of the LTL releases from 2023 that I've tasted.
Yeah,
just personally.
Wow.
Yeah, This is great. Truly great. Oh man.
Okay.
Love, what did you think about glass 1?
Well, I can't speak specifically to glass 1 because I have tasted them all. They're all delicious. But I will say glass 1 is in my top 2, and I'm trying to decide between my top 2.
Oh wow, okay.
Wow.
She's that far along.
All right.
She works quick, guys.
I go fast.
I'll follow up here at the end, but we'll kind of go round robin here. Landon, what did you think about glass 1? Our resident huge Found North fan. Is it cutting the mustard?
Yeah, it's up there. I definitely picked up that mesquite, that wood taste, that caramel as well. It kind of sits there in the back of your mouth, which is something I like. I like how it lingers. I haven't tried anything else yet, but I agree. Definitely a nice strong start.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Derek, how are you feeling about glass 1?
You know, the funny thing is when Joe was going through and coming up with the mesquite note, I was literally in the middle of writing mesquite on my paper. As soon as you go back to it, I didn't pick it up initially, but when I went back to it after getting through the first couple, I mean, it was apparent, and it was a banger.
Nice. Justin, glass 1. You digging it? How's it hitting you? What do you think?
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
Can I try your glass 1?
Justin, you're on mute.
Pop off a mute. Yeah. Can you
All right. Well, while Justin's coming off mute, I would say, not to give it away, but you're right, Nick. What's this, number 3? This is very mesquite forward. Goodness
There you go.
gracious.
I got you,
We got you,
Justin.
Justin. All right, we got you, Justin.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. Well, like Aaron, I speed date my glasses, and so I have smelled them all, tasted them all. Yeah, the first one, it's in my top 3. I like
Nice.
it. The mild fruitiness. I liked it.
I'm glad you said fruitiness. I'm going to come back to that, but I want to get Anthony's opinion on the first glass. Anthony, what do you think?
The nose is amazing. Great mouthfeel. I really love that wood flavor. I really love that. Growing up on a farm, it takes me back. But at the back of the palate, there's this hint of a very faint hint of a strawberry that really just rounds the flavor out. I really like it. And maple syrup, by the way.
I like the maple syrup call out because I'm getting that strong as you were saying it. Just to kind of echo what everybody said here, when I'm tasting things, I kind of use the first glass as a baseline, and I usually try to be pretty conservative with that. And when I do a numerical rating, just kind of for my own internal system here, and usually that rating is like a pretty moderate rating, and I couldn't give this, like, this is great whiskey. Like, this rating is of all the blinds we do on the channel, that's like a wild rating for me to give something right out of the gate. That is very good. I said it had a fluffy nose, like it has like this kind of puff pastry type of vibe to it, and fruit jam. And then there was something in there I could not put my finger on, and Joe hit it right off the bat. It's a beautiful honey note. And then I got brown sugar and sweet oak, and that mesquitiness to me is coming through, like just like a little bit of, like, it's the way the sweetness, all the sweetness interacts with a little bit of the barrel char. Like, it's almost like a little bit of a smoky barrel vibe, but not in any kind of like Scottish way. It's more like a sweet barbecue kind of thing. Like, you're saying mesquite, and I tend to think of mesquite as being kind of a heavier handed note. This is just like a beautiful kiss in the background. That's just gorgeous. And then on the palate, it's very elegant. Like, it's got power, but it's also not like crazy wild. It's very refined. Yeah, I'm in love with glass one. If that's where we're starting, I can't wait to see where we're going.
Well, that's the great thing about this night, and the bad thing, right? Like, how do you pick between 5 great whiskeys?
Exactly.
So true.
Oh man,
So true.
So I think really hard on the order. You know, that I because I understand how I've done enough tastings to understand how misplacing a whiskey will distort your sort of perception of later on whiskeys. And so you kind of want them. What is surprising to me is you don't want to put all the whiskeys that taste the same next to each other, because they kind of mute each other out. So you want to kind of roller coaster through the whiskeys. So I put this one first for a reason, and I don't want to. I'll wait till you guys pick. I really don't want to shade people's opinions, but at the end, I'll say the reason, because it's interesting to see everybody's reaction. Not good or bad. Not like, oh, I thought you'd all hate this one, or oh, I was sure you'd all love this. It's just interesting to see everybody's reaction based on where I put it and why. So we'll come back to that. Somebody in the chat asked if we're going to start seeing high corn picks soon. These are all high corn. These are all set. All of these are at least 70% corn. Just FYI.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we also did see, we also did have a question in the chat. Does that mean every single from you guys is automatically a double oaked? I think that's a great question.
Honestly, some of them are triple oaked if you really go that way, because we've blended with things that have been transferred into a different type of cask. I think the confusing thing there is when we think double oaked, we almost always are thinking of it in the bourbon sense, where it's new wood into new wood, which can get really, really oak heavy very quickly. But But if you transfer something from used oak into a different type of used oak, and then you put it into new oak, you will not get nearly as much extraction as you would from like a classic bourbon double oak style. So I don't know if there's a technically, because I don't believe double oaked is actually a legal term. But some of these are double oaked, some of these are triple oaked. You could say these are triple oaked. So it's confusing it's a little confusing with Canadian versus the American style, which we're all used to.
Yeah, Nick, and I think real quick, that's a really good point that I want to highlight. And this is something that I think Joe can speak a little bit more to, because for those that don't know, Joe is starting a local distillery in Ohio. But double oaked, we kind of all are familiar with that term in the bourbon world. Mm-hmm. And it's a term that, a lot of us are, Joe had kind of explained this to me, like a lot of people use it. It's a marketing term, essentially,
The marketing term, yeah.
It's not a legally defined category. So like double oaking something, there's no standard for that. There are things that we all drink and taste that are recast into other casks that are out there,
Actually what's happening, because a lot of the bourbon nerds want to like swarm on all this kind of stuff, and really with all those names that are non-regulated, really what you're kind of in the realm of is different categories from the TTB, right? When you're filing your formula or your labels, if you're going from new distillate to new wood, and then to used wood, or from used wood to new wood, or whatever, you're actually changing categories.
Yep.
And that's how the federal government kind of sees that. So all those, most everything you see, 80% of what you see on a label is all marketing.
Yeah. And then Nick, you may have said this, and I may have been just like completely enamored with what's in my glass and just blacked out from sensory overload.
Which happens with Josh from time to time.
It does happen to me more than I would like to admit, to be honest. But did you mention, or can you talk about a little bit about Hungarian oak? What, if any, influence does that have in here? That was one of the more fascinating things when we learned about you guys' products and why they're so dang good. That was something that I thought was really fascinating. Okay,
so 3 of these samples, I'll say this, 3 of these samples, which represent one of the 2 seasons that you guys are tasting, have a very small portion of Hungarian oak. Hungarian oak, I love Hungarian oak. I love Hungarian oak as much as I love my dogs. I absolutely love Hungarian oak. And I love my
We're on
dogs.
the same page.
No idea. Yeah, no, Hungarian oak is so cool. It simply put, it tends to throw a lot of like rich baking spice notes. And we use it in virtually everything we make. Not all of our finished blends, but most of the batches, I think like when we've done 8 batches, I think 6 of them have used Hungarian oak component. So we tend to use it in a lot of things because it gives you this kind of cinnamon, nutmeg, really interesting characteristic. I think what's fascinating about it is it has a slightly tighter grain, but a higher concentration of wood sugar. So the other thing you tend to get is like molasses, which I absolutely adore. So your classic American oak notes, they just get taken like a shade darker. I tend to think of like the bright fruit notes. I tend to think is like light colored. I just for whatever reason, the synesthesia in my brain tends to think of things on a color gradient when I think about flavors. And Hungarian oak just takes everything down a shade, which I absolutely adore. So we tend to use it. It's in a small amount in some of these whiskeys.
So when you're using either Hungarian oak as a second barrel or like a different finish for the third barrel, does the time vary depending on like the barrel type that you're dumping the whiskey into for the second or the third one? And if so, what's like the kind of thought process behind it?
It depends where the whiskey, whether it's a component or a blend, is starting.
Okay.
So most of the wood extraction, this is a weird thing that most people don't fully appreciate with whiskey, which is most of the wood extraction happens in the first 6 months. Now, granted, that's dependent a little bit on the time of year. So we see way more wood extraction in the summer than you see in the winter, and that's purely a heat thing. But much more of the wood extraction happens early on, and so almost always, if we're going to put something into a secondary maturation, particularly if it's a heavier style barrel or it's new wood, it better be starting at a place where it hasn't gotten a lot of oak, because in 6 months that thing's going to be tannic as hell. So you have to be really, really careful about making sure there's space for it to grow into more of the wood profile that you want. So it's very, very, if I'm using a Sauternes barrel, or I'm particularly if you're using like any type of refill, like refill spirit cask, you can be much more aggressive with that and anticipate that you can age that for a long time. So like when we did, for example, when we did Peregrine, Peregrine used a combination of new wood barrels and used barrels, but it was used cognac barrels. And so we did that intentionally because we were like, okay, we're going to use a lot of new wood, which is going to give it a lot of wood. But we're also going to use these ex-cognac barrels that we can let sit for a while. And when we blend them back together, we're pretty confident that we can get them to a point where they're balanced and we're not making an over oaked profile.
Got it. Okay. Very helpful. Thank you, Nick.
Dig that. All right, guys. How's everybody feeling about the second glass here? Let's give the chat some stuff to work on here. So sounds like the first glass was a pretty big winner. How are you guys feeling about the second glass? Joe, you want to lead off again?
Yeah. So I'm not as thrilled on the nose with the second one. I thought my first initial impression was it reminded me of one, but amped up a little bit. It seemed to have more flavor than one for me. That faded the longer we got into this. It's super good. I've been through them all now because we're like almost 33 minutes into this. And it's super good. I would honestly haven't been through all these. I'd be super thrilled for any of these to be a pick, but I've kind of separated it to my top 3 and my bottom 2, and it's one of my bottom 2 right now.
Interesting.
It's one of my bottom 2 as well, Joe.
Yeah. Well,
interesting.
Because you're a genius. You're always right, man. Everything right.
All right. Well, I'll lead off this time, and I'll have Marcus bring up the rear on this one. But I'll say for me, this was like, I don't even know how to describe this. I think I like this one a fair bit more than you and Aaron did, Joe. I thought this was like sugar, spice, and everything nice. It had a saturated sweetness. Like it's right now is still soaking into I feel it infiltrating my tongue. Like it is soaking in. I don't even know how to describe the flavor of what I'm tasting, because if I give you regular tasting notes, you're just gonna be like, whatever. Those are notes that I said, but it's almost like if you took a 50-gallon drum of Smarties and then you melted them down into a syrup and then you aged that in a barrel for like 15 years or something. Like it's got like this, and somehow it all blends together perfectly. It doesn't have the impact.
I get the Smarties.
Okay, I'm like, am I crazy?
They've got some age on them, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what to say. It's like it's fat kid whiskey, and I love that.
Yeah, I'm not fighting you on that, because you know what's interesting is last year, I distinctly remember last year, right? There was at least 2 of the 3 we had a real discussion on. I felt really strongly about 1 or 2 of them. I love, honestly, all 5 of these. I wouldn't fight anyone over any of them. I want all 5 of them.
I'm in that same spot. I have them ranked, but it's just arbitrary ranking because we have to.
All right, let's bounce down to the bottom and work our way back up to the top this time. So, Anthony, What do you think about the second glass?
I won't compare it to the first one, but I liked it for different reasons. For me, it would go great with a cigar. It's not going to compete with the cigar, and I smoke a lot of Maduro leaf, stronger cigars. So this would be a good complement. The nose was very subtle but fruit forward. But when you tasted it, everything that I got on the nose was an explosion of flavor. I really love the barrel char on that. I love that barrel char, and at the finish, nice long finish. It's still going on now. Um, but I got red apples at the back of the palate, and the sweet corn taste, the sweetness of the corn. I like it, but for different reasons. It would. I've been through all of them. It would be in the bottom, but it's still really good. Great with a cigar.
Interesting. Good stuff, man. So for reference for the chat, I have not been through all of them. I'm kind of trying to go one by one here, and that's just my process. So I don't know where it ranks for me. But Justin, I know you've been through them all. Where does Glass 2 rank for you?
I love Glass 2. My palate loves Glass 2. And if Nick has a barrel of Glass 2 that he doesn't know what to do with, I'm your guy.
All right. Sounds like me and Justin might be having a similar experience here. Derek, what do you think about Glass 2?
Glass 2 for me, I felt that it was a little bit softer than 1. I mean, obviously you got to compare them to each other, but I really did enjoy it. I did get a little bit more of a cherry note on my end. Initial when I first got it, I did get a little bit of a mustiness, like it was a little higher aged. Very well rounded, but for me it was just a little bit softer than the first. Very good. I still haven't fully ranked all of them yet, so we're still kind of in the debate process here, but
sounds good. Landon, what do you think about Glass 2?
Yeah, when you said that saturated sugar, I got a bunch of that. Like when you melted down all the Skittles or the Smarties, I got a little bit of a grape note on that. Really grassy. I think I've tried through them all now. This one is probably one of the sweetest ones, I think, for me. And I'm still debating with myself, but it's kind of right in the middle for me right now. I'm still thinking it through.
Perfect. Judge, I cannot wait to hear what you think about Glass 2.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Landon. It's definitely in the middle. But there's this to me it's crystal clear. This is a bubble gum like bomb. Like it smells like bubble gum, like big time. That's all I kept thinking. So like Anthony said, it was very sweet, and it would go very well with the cigar because it wouldn't compete. To your point, Anthony. But I'm with Landon, right? It's in the middle in terms of like when I think of Found North. It's slightly, in my opinion, kind of off profile, but not in a bad way. In a very like almost like a sweeter profile. But to me, it's just a bubble gum bomb, big time. I like it. Though. I do.
That's good stuff, man. And I do think I love what everybody's saying about Glass 2. I have self-professed love for Glass 2. It's almost like, and I'm not making a direct correlation of flavor here, but like. And not to be comparative or whatever, but like we all need some frame of reference, right? A lot of Buffalo Trace's products are very sweet, but they don't really soak into your palate. They're just kind of sweet and thin. This hits that same high gear of sweetness, but it soaks in, which is something that, to me, special whiskey. But if it didn't soak in, it wouldn't be as exceptional as it is. It's pretty low on the spice level, though. So very interesting points on Glass 2. Mm-hmm. As we kind of get ready to talk about Glass 3, Nick, I think it's, one of the more interesting things to me about Found North, and just for everybody in the chat here, again, if you have questions, leave them, and we'll try to get to them. We'd love to address everybody's individual chat, but we got a big group here, and we're working through 5 glasses, so it's a little tough, but we see you. We appreciate you being here. I would love, Nick, for you to tell people because we gave Justin some samples, and then I need to go grab 2 more bottles, but I know how you guys started, and I think it's cool how you were just a whiskey nerd. I love knowing the background of companies, especially smaller companies, right? Like you kind of got to be a little bit crazy to have a whiskey channel, you also got to be a little bit crazy to decide to start, crafting and selling whiskey to people. So will you give people a little bit of a background on why you guys went out on this limb and, what the kind of the vision and the mission of Found North is, just to fill people in if they're not familiar with the brand?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard for me to judge which of the two of us is crazier, but we're both pretty high on the spectrum. It's like comparing, some of these whiskeys. No, I appreciate that. And it's, I'm trying to think of how far back to go. Because there's like the origin story of Found North, but then there's a lot of backstory behind that. So I'll just go way back for a minute here, just to really give people a peek under the hood, or a peek behind the curtain. But basically, I started this company with my brother, and it, believe it or not, a whiskey company is not the first company we tried to start together. My brother and I started a tech startup back in like 2012 together, and we got our teeth kicked in. I mean, we got our ass kicked like you wouldn't believe. And we were licking our wounds and deciding what to do next. And I had a lot of great experiences with whiskey. I really enjoyed whiskey. I had a fascination with aging whiskey. And the notion that people were releasing these whiskeys that they had aged for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I just think that's the coolest. I still think it's the coolest thing. I still think the fact that people, when you go to distilleries and you see people who have been working at the same distillery for 36 years doing the same thing, it just, I'm obsessed with it. And I had a real fascination with whiskey, and I decided to sort of start pursuing whiskey as a career. And I ended up going to Scotland. I was a Scotch guy first, before I got into anything else. I ended up going to Scotland. I spent 30 days in Scotland pretending I was a whiskey writer, about 10 years ago. And I went to 40 distilleries in 30 days. My liver's never recovered.
Wow.
It's pretty ridiculous. And the fun thing, I haven't been back to Scotland in like 6 or 7 years. But the fun thing about Scotland back in like 2014 was, if you went there and said you worked in the industry, or said you wanted to work in the industry, they would grab you, take you out back, and give you like 15 whiskeys and tell you everything they were trying to, they just love talking about Scotch and their production. And what I quickly learned was there was this huge dislocation between what the whiskey industry says matters for flavor and what actually matters for flavor. And I was fascinated by this. And so when I got back from Scotland, I took a job as a whiskey expert for a chain of retailers in Massachusetts. And I just started teaching classes on like 3 nights a week. I would pour 6 whiskeys and teach people about how whiskey's made. And I would basically blow up all of the marketing crap that I had heard over the years and say, this doesn't actually matter, and this is what matters, and this is why you like it. And I had so much fun doing that. And I called my brother and I said, do you want to take a swing at starting a company again? This was back in 2016. And he said, yeah, what's the company? And I said, I'm not exactly sure, but there's something here in like teaching people how whiskey's made and sharing, just the history and the passion for whiskey with people. And so we started as literally like brand consultants, and we would represent so many brands you couldn't believe. I mean, like 50 different brands over a couple of years. We would go in and we would do tastings and seminars all over New England and all on the East Coast, and basically teach people about other brands that we didn't own. Eventually, we were in the industry enough that we got an importing license, and really the mission was to start our own brand. But the problem we had was, I have an interest. I have a real interest in starting a distillery, but I have enough experience to know that you have to have been at it for a while before you have to have had your foot in the door a while before you get into it. You really need to understand what you like and why. And so we were really interested in sourcing before we were going to start our distillery, and we just couldn't get our thumb on a really good source of whiskey. And then COVID hit, and we lost all of our contracts. And basically, like, we had multiple employees that we couldn't pay, and we were totally screwed. I mean, like, I when I think about how I felt when COVID hit, and we just overnight, like, all our contract, everybody just started calling us and going, hey, you can't do tasting, you can't do seminars, you can't do sales, we can't pay you. And you're sitting there going, okay, we've got a couple guys on payroll. How are we going to pay them? What the hell are we going to do? And I remember sitting in my car on the phone with my brother, and I was talking to him, and he was like, are we going to close up shop? Like, are we just going to close up shop and go do something else? And both of us sat there for a minute, and I was like, fuck no. We've been at this we've been trying to do this for, forget just the whiskey, for 3 years. We've been trying to do this together for 7 years, and we just starting to really make our way here, Yeah. And he said, okay, well, we took out federal loans to pay our employees, and we basically were like, we've got a year before we're completely broke, and we have to launch a brand in a year. What's the best idea we have? What's the best whiskey we've found? And my brother had just gotten back from Paris, and he was at Whiskey Live right before COVID hit in Paris. It was a huge whiskey show, and he had met a Canadian blender there, and the blender had told Zach, like, what he had available for sale, and we were like, holy, what the hell? Like, let's get samples. And when we started getting samples in, what we appreciated immediately about Canadian whiskey was you can't just bottle it. You actually have to do work with it. You actually have to sit down and blend it. And instead of being intimidating, that was really exciting, because we just didn't see the appeal of being another brand that wasn't adding a lot of value. There are a lot of brands that just don't really add a lot of value. They buy it here and they sell it here, and where's the...
Let's be honest, you didn't want to be another MGP on the shelf.
Where's the craftsmanship, right? Where's the craftsmanship?
Yeah,
and what we were seeing was that a lot of the ways that these source brands were differentiating was blending. But the thing is, like, Canadian whiskey is actually designed to be blended. That's the advantage of it. That and the ridiculously old age statements. And so we were like, we just grabbed it and ran. There's a lot more to it, but we basically started blending. It took us 9 months. We had a year to figure it out, and it took us 9 months before we made something even halfway decent, because none of us had a lot of blending experience, and there were a lot of days where 3 months in, and I'm going, let me explain. What we used to do is, when you're locked in making whiskey, and you're making kind of a variation on the same thing all the time, it's very hard. You're like, okay, the thing I just made is better than what I made yesterday, but how does that compare in the grand scope of the whole whiskey market? So what we used to do is we used to make blends, and then we had a bunch of competitors, a bunch of American, because we made rye first. We had a bunch of American ryes that we absolutely loved. Michter's 10-year rye, a Whistlepig single barrel pick that I had done when I worked at Gordon's. We used a Rendezvous rye, a Lockstock. We had a bunch of really high quality ryes, and we would put them into little bottles and send them to each other, and send them to our customers who we were really close with. And we would say, rank these 5, and completely blind. And one of them would be our blend. And for the first 6 months, we were never out of the bottom 2. We just we never were out of it, but we were making bad blend after bad blend after bad blend. And eventually we went back to the drawing board, and we changed how we were approaching blending, and it was like a total aha moment. And we started making good blends, and then the whole thing kind of snowballed from there. But there was a real fire under our ass that honestly worrying about paying our team. That's the truth of it. We wanted to pay our guys who took pay cuts and stuck with us when we had nothing but hope on the line. There was just absolutely nothing. So you sit there and you're just like, we better figure this out. We have to figure this out. And then I remember when we launched batch 1 and 2, we had started to send these out, and they were like the first or second place whiskey when we were sending them out to people. And we were like, okay, we think we've got good whiskey, but until you package it and put it out there, and there's all, who knows whether people are really going to like it or not. And I remember I sent the blends to Lou Bryson, who was the former managing editor of Whiskey Advocate and a friend of mine from early on in my whiskey career. And I remember he called me, and I could feel my heart just like, and he gets on and he just totally slow plays me. He's just sitting there and he's like, Nick, man, these whiskeys, and I'm like, Lou, my heart's about to fucking explode. Can you tell me they're really good? And he was like, you made some really good whiskeys. And I my legs, like I literally felt myself kind of just fall to the floor and kind of go, okay, I think we have something. And then here we are years later, and it's still going.
So you know what I got from that story, Josh?
What's that?
They are much smarter than I am, because
It don't take much though.
I got the cooker, the fermenters, the still. Yep. There you go.
All right, guys. Let's get through some of these. Let's get through glass 3. Give the chat some meat. Although Nick has given them tons. I love origins. I love origin stories and how and why people made the decisions they made.
He
That's
truly does.
Thing.
On our first date, Josh asked me what my passions were. Yeah. No joke.
Tell me what you're about.
Yeah. On our very first date, it was a coffee date, and he goes, "So what are your passions?"
I'm not messing around, guys.
And I was like, I was so caught off guard. I think I said watching TV or something.
I'm qualifying. I'm trying to know what you're all about.
I don't even know why he asked me out on a second date after that.
And I know what she's all about, and I know what Nick's all about.
I want to tell a fun story for you, Nick. So I remember this vividly. So I talked to the whiskey tube community. We're all pretty close for the most part, and I'll never forget. I was sitting right here, not recording, obviously, and I was talking to Josh, and he's like, "Dude, have you tried Down North?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of heard about them. It's some decent Canadian whiskey blended." He's like, "Have you tried it?" I was like, "Nah." I was like, "I don't know, Josh. I don't know, man. I'm not sure if I even want to try Down North." He's like, "Just try a bottle. Let me know what you think." So I tried a bottle, and I felt like I was hooked like a crackhead. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, "What in the hell is this whiskey all about?" And it was just great. It was great.
What bottle was that, Marcus?
That was batch 5. Batch 5.
Wow.
Yeah, batch 5. Yeah, batch 5. Then I ended up getting 4. Now I have almost everyone but 1 and 2. But yeah, it was epic, literally.
For everybody in chat, just so you know, and everybody on the screen too, I gotta thank you for saying that, Marcus. And I was happy. I'm always happy to spread the Found North gospel. And look, guys, again, we have no involvement. I just really like Nick's whiskey, and Nick is a cool guy and comes on these streams with us. But none of us are on the Found North payroll. We always I was actually talking to you about this. Since my teenage years and the hobbies I've been involved in over the course of my life, and it's been many, but I've always had an appreciation for those that, the stalwarts of the industry, right? They're doing something right. I have appreciation for that, but the things I've always gotten the most excited about, it doesn't matter if it was in my teenage years with skateboarding or my 20s with cars and car audio and racing and all that stuff, or, you know, camera
Yeah.
equipment over the years, photography and videography, and whiskey.
Watches.
I appreciate the big brands for the legacy that they've created and the history that they have. But when you can have a new company like Found North that comes into the scene with passion and enthusiasm, and it's not just that, but they're tapped into they themselves are whiskey fans. They themselves are whiskey nerds, and they use that to inform.
Hold up. That's not enough. They have to actually be making a good product.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying.
And they are. And that's the thing.
I know you just stepped on the toes of my point, but I was saying
get to the point.
They use that information and that fandom of themselves to inform what they create for the market. So it's literally enthusiasts creating whiskey for other enthusiasts. And there's nobody better to be doing it than someone like that, rather than somebody that just, you know, gets into it because whiskey's the new hottest thing or whatever. Like, they love whiskey and they know what good whiskey tastes like, so they know how to make good whiskey.
Well, and
Josh,
you know an authentic story when you hear it too. And Nick, you're getting a lot of love in the comments too with the story, because it is awesome, and everyone can relate to. Not everyone can relate to maybe having employees that are relying on you for a paycheck, which is got to be, you know, that's a stressful thing. But just everything through 2020 and after that and what happened, and you can, like I said, you can tell an authentic story versus marketing. And I think people relate to that, and it's awesome.
Thanks, man.
All right, real quick, let's go around the horn on glass number 3. And we got a few more to work through here, but we'll go ahead and lead off. We'll put Joe on the spot again. That's the theme of the night. Put Joe on the spot. How do you feel about glass 3?
5 amazing whiskeys. I want all 5 of these. 3 is clearly number 1 for me.
Joe.
Okay.
Joe, you and I are the same.
I know why you're saying that, and I like 3 a lot, but I want to.
Josh,
I want to have. I want to have a public conversation about this.
How many barrel picks? How many barrel picks have we done together?
Quite a lot.
No, quite a lot. And every single time, Aaron's right, you're wrong. You have to change over the side. What happened?
To that point, Joe, 8 or glass 3. At first, with the very first time I tasted them through, was not my top one. But then I've tasted them through several times, and each time I tasted it, it like rose higher and higher in the ranks, and it is like, I feel like it's my favorite.
And I know why too. But go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
It's weird, but it's not weird, right? Like, I know there's 2 seasons in here, and we don't know which is which. But it feels like it has the best components of all 5 in the one glass. I did get to 5, Nick, and that barbecue smokiness was front and center. But it had a bright note to it that I wasn't digging as much. And so it had the smokiness barbecue note, it had the sweet sugary note, it had the oaky note, which I'm really appreciating oak a lot more lately. It had a component of all 5 in the one glass that I loved.
All right, so just to keep it going around the horn, I think we've all been through all of them, so let's kind of just talk through all of them. But we're going to go a glass at a time so the chat can keep up and kind of know what we're talking about. So right now we're talking about glass 3, and on the piggyback of Joe, I've been kind of waiting a little later to go, but I want to go on this one because 3 is the powerhouse of the bunch. It is a monster whiskey. Okay. I wrote on the nose, I just wrote butterscotch syrup on buttered pancakes. Like, I don't even know if that's a thing. I don't know if, like, at IHOP they have, they got maple syrup. I don't know if they have liquefied butterscotch and made it into a syrup as well. But in my mind, that's what this smells like on buttered pancakes at a breakfast table that somebody set up in a rick house. Okay.
With the smoky bacon, there's just a little bit of smoky bacon there.
And then on the palate, I got like a double oaked maple syrup vibe on the palate, and then it had some spice. It has a lot of power. In comparison, it is the most punchy and powerful. It carries some
It made my
spice with
lips
it.
tingle.
Yeah, it's got a lot of that going on with it. And it, to me, that double oakedness can be a little drying, and you're just going to get that sometimes with age or extra wood influence. And I'm curious to know where people land on that, because to me, it is in my top. I'll be honest, guys. Like, there's one of these that's last for me, not because it's bad, just because it's different. The other four, I'm having a really difficult time, personally speaking. I got my Fat Kid Sweet Whiskey. I got the other three. I got two that are very close to each other, and then this is kind of an outlier in that it's like one's an outlier in the fruitiness, or sorry, Glass 5 is an outlier in the fruitiness, which we'll get to that. But Glass 3 is an outlier in just the pure power and delivery and forwardness of it. So I'm curious to know what everybody else thinks. We've been making Marcus wait. Marcus, what do you think about Glass 3?
So I'm not going to lie. I moved these around a little bit because I ranked them in order. There are two that are just a little bit different, and I'm going to leave them in a different category. But there's one that I love. So which one is number 3, by the way?
That is number 8.
FN8.
FN8.
Okay. So 8 and 35, in my opinion, are amazing. Like almost equally. 8 and 35. 35 almost makes you want to cry. It's so damn good, honestly. But 8 is really, really, really good too. So for 8, I had, it's a ton of oak, caramel. I got some plum notes in there. I got some almost like some crystallized brown sugar kind of notes in there as well. I mean, between 8, 35, and 36, I honestly can really care less which one you pick because they're all so good. But 8 and 35 are just flat out. They're exceptional. I mean, this is exceptional, truly.
All right, I love what you're saying, and we're going to get around to it when we talk about 35, which is the 4th glass. But I want to get everybody else's opinion on the 3rd glass. And I will urge you, by the way, before we make a final vote on this, which we will take a vote on this, whichever one, if 8 is high up for you, and I'm going to guess it's pretty high up for all of us, don't drink it before whatever else is challenging it for you. Like, drink whatever else first, and then try 8 after you drink some water and clear your palate, because it's so powerful. What I'm finding is when I drink it and then drink something else to compare it to, it washes it out. But if I start with something else and then go back to FN8, the 3rd glass, I get a better read on both of the things I'm comparing it to. So let's go to Landon this time, and we'll work our way down here. Derek, Justin, and then Anthony. But Landon, what did you think about glass number 3, FN8?
Yeah, all roads for me are leaning towards this glass. I feel like Nick threw this right in the middle to see if we catch it. This one is the powerhouse. I definitely have a clear last, but man, this one is, yeah, it's got the great balance to it, the nice spiciness, the great sweetness. It all comes together in the pot there. This one is incredible. That's all I got to say.
Good deal. Derek, what do you think about the 3rd glass, FN8?
Again, I'm still kind of back and forth between a couple of them here, but this one obviously right up there. A couple of things that I had written down, initial, just it hits you in the face, and it's like, hey, here I am. You need to get in here and you need to drink me. And I mean, and it's there. I also have s'mores written down. Like, I got that little bit of graham cracker. I got that little bit of s'more, that little bit of chocolate, the oak.
Marshmallow.
Definitely. Very nice.
I dig that. Justin, I know your palate pretty well. I'm very curious to know what you think about glass number 3, sample FN8. Is this one that you like? Are you not liking it? How are you feeling about this glass?
Man, look, glass number 3, she's an aggressive bitch, but she's my rebound girl. Because when I drink her, I'm still missing glass 2.
Okay.
Missing glass 2.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
And to answer Rizzy D's question, glass 2 was the Fat Kid whiskey.
Yes.
And my inner fat kid loves glass 2.
Yeah. All right. Anthony, what do you think about the 3rd glass, sample FN8?
I really liked it. You can't go wrong with any of them, but maple syrup, butterscotch pancakes is what I wrote with chocolate on the side. And the oakiness dries you out, but that's a good thing because it prepares you to receive the strawberry and the apple finish that I get that makes your mouth water. And the finish is just super long on it. I loved it. Of course, I love all of them, but yeah, this one is just special.
Nice. All right, guys. I think everybody's been through them all, so let's go ahead and just roll right into talking about Glass 4. If anybody needs a refresher, I'll be happy to go first on this one. I've got some pretty good notes, but to me on the nose, I put this smelled elegantly. It's aged elegantly like Aaron.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Huge
Thank you.
compliment.
Okay.
It's a huge compliment.
Thank you.
Yeah. I thought
there, Josh.
this was like, I know I was treading thin ice there, but I was.
It's okay. He calls me old
Yeah.
all the time. He makes
So,
up for it later.
By the way, Richie Z asked, what are the proofs on these? We don't know. We're blind.
Yeah.
This to me is like, it has components of 1 and 3, sample FN36 and sample FN8. It has components of both of those, but they are combined and presented in just a very elegant way. And I said that it was sticky and saturated with a sneaky finish. Like, you know, we're coming off of this one right off the heels of glass number 3. Glass number 3 is just a powerhouse. It's you know, kicking your teeth in, grabbing you by your tonsils, and you know, throwing you around the room. This glass is going to wine and dine you a little bit. You know, like it's going to take you out for a nice evening. It's going to open the door for you. It's just going to treat you like the lady that you need to be treated like. And I really like this glass a lot, and it's, to me, it's in my top 4.
I think it's in everyone's top 4.
I'm having a really tough time with this, guys. They're all so good.
They are also good.
All right, let's go on Glass 4. This for you.
For me, Glass 1 and Glass 4, which is FN36 and FN35, were very close. So honestly, I have 36 and 35, which is Glass 1 and Glass 4, both in second place because I can't decide. So I like them both. The end.
Okay. Let's go ahead and let's go to Lance. How did we start last time? We ended with Anthony. Anthony, do you want to go on Glass 4?
Yes. I really love Glass 4. To me, it's the most refined of them all. It is a combination of FN8 and 36, but you know, it's not overbearing like 8, and it's just more refined. I love the nose on it. The palate is woody. It's very viscous. I love the sweetness of it, and it has a good long finish. That would be another one that would be great with a cigar.
Perfect. Justin, where did this one rank for you? How are you feeling about it?
Man, if the second glass rejects me or gets tired of me, I'm going after Glass 4.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I just took another sip of it and I said it had the best qualities of Glass 1 and 3. But as I took another sip of it, it kind of also has that kind of fat kid super sweet element and that saturation that Glass 2 has. So it's almost like Nick set this order up, and it's almost like Glass 4 is just like the combination of the first 3 glasses. And that's probably why he's brilliant and is running a really great whiskey company. And we're just, as I call us, chuckleheads on YouTube drinking whiskey. So, all right,
you guys are y'all are sharp. No. I'm not kidding. I'm really, really, really impressed with everybody. But I'll get to that later. I've been. Seriously, I'm having so much fun. There's nothing better than sitting here and listening to you guys talk about how much you like the whiskeys. But also, aside from that, putting that piece of this aside, I'm just blown away. Y'all are lasers. If you all need jobs on a tasting panel, like, go ahead.
Let's work.
Proceed.
All right, Derek, what do you think about Glass 4?
Glass 4 initial. A lot of caramel, a lot of oak. I don't know if it was, after kind of mixing, getting through everything, but every time I went back to it, I get those little honey barbecue Frito, those little curly chips. My girls like to eat those all the time, and I'm getting those every time I go back to it, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It's still sitting here mingling with a couple other ones for top spot, but another one, Nick, you guys do amazing work over there, and we're seeing it firsthand right now.
Facts.
Love it. Landon, you're up next, but I'm going to go ahead and say I want to comment on Derek, what he just said. I think Joe can attest to this. We've done a fair few barrel picks, right? And everybody does their barrel picks a little bit different. Sometimes it's a random selection. Sometimes it's a more curated, choice of what you get. And, I've definitely been on barrel picks. We both definitely been on barrel picks and I'm sure Joe and Judge and, you go and you're like, okay, like we had 5 samples, like 2 of them were vying for actual viable options for us to select. And the other 3 are kind of pretty easy to throw out. And it is, I'm going to send Nick some hate mail after this because these are, they're all good. They're just, they're different. They're good. They're different. They're all good in different ways. So I don't even know how we're going to handle the voting on this. We'll figure that out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But Landon, what do you think about Glass 4?
Yeah, I am right in line with Marcus with this one in Glass 3. These 2 are, for me, top contenders. I'm thinking about what I want to do here, but it's another powerhouse for me. It's incredible. This one's great with a nice steak dinner. That's what I'm gonna say. It's really good.
I can see that.
It makes me want some steak.
All right,
it does. It does.
Judge and Joe, did I get out of order here? You guys spoke on Glass 4, right?
Joe, you can go first. Gentlemen first, please.
All right. So for Josh, I think you're right. I think it's a little more elegant, but I think that means you're maybe a little more delicate than me. So I'm still saying that 3 is better than 4. And I'm lockstep with Aaron on this one. I've got 1 and 4 as tied for second. 3 is my number 1.
Yeah.
3 is your number 1. Okay.
Samesies.
Okay. Judge, what did you think about 4?
So just because Joe said it, we are close. I have 1 and 3 as tied for second. I think number 4, the one we're talking about, number effing, I think this is 35, right? Effing 35?
Yes.
This is, I think, in a whole nother level. Just me personally, everyone's different palates, right? I'm good with these 3 in general, and I can honestly care less. But I truly think FN 35, it's so good. Even if we don't pick it, I would ask Nick on the back end, who will get this barrel? Because I want to buy like 3 or 4 bottles. That's just my opinion. So it's everything. But I think Landon said it best, though. I mean, it truly is a combination of the first 3 all kind of combined together. And that's the reason why I love it. It's a little bit of everything, truly.
Judge, you got a great point there. And I don't think, and Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, I've been on more barrel picks with you than anybody else here. Yeah. I don't think I've ever been in another barrel pick where I could say, oh yeah, any of those 3, I don't care.
Yeah.
That really happens.
I can honestly think of one, and it's people who are doing innovative things who really care about what they're doing. They really, really, really care. And I know people are going to wonder about that, but Middle West Spirits.
I was going to say Middle West. We ended up getting 2 barrels.
So all of those barrels were good, but I still had a favorite there. Here, I truly would be.
That's fair.
100% thrilled with either 3.
Yeah. So real quick, that's a great point. I don't think I've ever had a more difficult decision to make. Because we're here. I thought this was going to be an hour. We're an hour and 14 minutes in. I still don't know which one my favorite is.
I feel like we should do a top 2 between
we haven't
3 and 4.
Let's let the chat. A lot of us aren't talking about 5.
Okay.
Nick sent 5. 5 is wild and super interesting.
Yeah,
I think we owe it to people in chat to talk about 5. I think 5 is the type of sample you put into a blind flight or a whatever, a blind flight if we're kind of talking about what we do, you know, or Nick puts it in here and he's like, this is either going to be first place or last place.
Yeah.
And there's no, like, we're shooting for the moon, baby.
Five
I don't know
is-
where we're going to land, but it's.
Five is the crazy girl in Las Vegas. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, she is.
Exactly.
So it's like 5. If I can tell you guys what 5 is like, if you smell it, it's almost like a boozy vanilla milkshake that somebody has
That
put
has melted.
that's melted down, and somebody put fruit juice in, and then also like it's smoked, also like you would smoke an old fashioned or something.
Yes,
Like somebody
it
put
is.
a thing over it and pumped it. Like
That's
5
so
is
accurate.
You're right. You're right, Josh.
wild
You are
thing.
so spot on, dude. That's the craziest thing. You are spot on. It is.
But
It
here's the
has
thing.
that smoke flavor.
Locked in.
What Josh
Yeah.
said, if you think about what he actually said, that sounds absolutely disgusting. But this is
Yeah.
not
Sure.
disgusting. This is
Yeah.
delicious.
I honestly
Yeah.
think Glass 5, if you like, Glass 5 is like a world uniter. In this lineup,
Mhm.
I prefer the deeper, darker, richer flavors,
Yeah.
and I think we're kind of all talking and leaning towards the other ones as well. But this one right here, if you like any kind of worldwide whiskey, this is going. You're like, if you were a huge Scotch head and you're like, I dabble in bourbon and rye sometimes,
Big time.
you would freaking love this. Like, you need to. I don't want to create more work for Nick, but I was going to say you need to contact him somehow and figure out where this barrel goes, because
Yeah.
it is one of the most cool whiskey experiences I've had in a long time.
So
I
I
agree.
have this one
Wow.
in front of your Fat Kid whiskey.
Ooh.
That's offensive, sir.
It's
No.
different.
Yeah,
It's different.
I like number 5, but for a different reason. It's just totally different. It
Yeah.
stands alone, but it pairs well with the type cigars that I smoke, and I like brandy as well. So for me, it's like a brandy, but I really like it. It's different. It's woody, smoky, oaky, and spicy, and it will go well with a cigar.
But
The ones
Eddie,
that I
don't you
smoke.
think though this would only go well with like a Connecticut wrapper because it's so smoky?
Yeah, but I like those that are so strong that
You do.
unless you have something like a number 3, you're not really going to taste it. The pairing is really as a compliment
Yeah.
for me.
You don't
Yeah.
you don't drink the whiskey and smoke the cigar at the same time. You just dip the butt of the whiskey. I mean, dip the butt of the cigar into the whiskey, and you just taste this whiskey through the cigar. That's all you need to do with this one.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, it's the one I get that little bit. My dad's a huge brandy fan, so when I'm over there, I'll have brandy with him, and I get a little vibes of that. But this is that outlier, and I know I can't be the only one that experienced this. I know everybody's had this, where you have friends, a group of friends over, and it's that one bottle where like, you gotta try this one. This one is off the wall. Like, you gotta. This is so wild.
Yeah.
My notes on this one were I just drank a campfire.
That's good. That's valid though. It is. It's very valid. Derek, what about you, Derek? What do you think about this one?
I'm gonna piggyback on what Justin just said. I'm like, this is like getting white girl wasted at a campfire and just passing out, and you wake up the next morning and you just smell like straight smoke, and you're just like, you know what, that was fantastic night.
I love that
Did
so
you say
much.
white girl wasted?
We've all been there. You know what that is.
We've all been there. You're right.
I want to know if Marcus has been there. Have you been there, Marcus?
I have not been there, but I'll have to ask Mrs. Judge if she's been there. I have not personally.
Oh, you know she has. She's a good time. I can tell she probably has.
10 years in the Army, I've been there a couple of times.
There we go, Anthony.
Yeah, you have,
There we
Anthony.
All right, so
What did Landon think about?
Landon,
Five?
go ahead.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, Landon.
You
Yeah.
know, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. This one it was all over the place. It just, it's good. It's, like everyone's saying, it's a wild ride. For me personally, it just wasn't the best for me, which not saying it's not good. It's just, it just wasn't the best for me. This one, it's just a wild
That's
ride.
fair.
Don't feel bad.
I would like to take a guess also that this number 5 would be the Hungarian oak.
Oh,
That's just my
no way.
guess.
No, no,
No, I think
way.
this is like some kind of wild, like
Experiment.
Calvados finish or something like that. So we'll see.
he's
Or
shaking
like,
his
I'm
head.
excited.
Hang on. Mezcal.
It has to be an X,
Mezcal
like
barrel.
I don't know, some type of like an X Scotch barrel finish. It has to be.
there we go. So he's pointing. So let's
Right.
go ahead and start the reveal. Is it fair to say that?
Wait, do we have a winner yet?
No, we don't. But we're going to eliminate.
Okay.
So I think
definitely was
it's
thinking
is
Scotch
it
on
fair
this
to
one.
say that Glass 5 is going to be something that we're all not going to pick as our favorite
Correct.
for this?
I think so.
Fair. Okay.
Yes.
So
Fair.
Nick, what can you tell us about Glass 5 that we have eliminated?
It's an Isla cask. And
Makes sense.
you all nailed it. It's fun to put this type of cask into a lineup for a couple reasons. One, first of all, you have to put it last. If you don't, you're doing a disservice to the other whiskeys.
Sure.
So you put it last, and you'd be surprised how often I'll take something and I'll be like, this thing is so psychedelic. Like, I don't think it's going to be the pick, and I'll put it in. And there have been countless times where people get to it and they're just like, this is my favorite, and their audience absolutely loves it, and they have a style and people know them for a style, and that's what they like. And so you just got to put them in when you put them in. Candidly, I think this needs another 3 months. I think this will get a little less smoky and a little sweeter, which is what kind of Isla casks tend to do. Phenols will come off a little bit, and that rich kind of rock candy fruit will start coming through more, and this thing will get a little bit more even. But I just thought it was a really fun whiskey to put last. I thought it was a really fun whiskey to give shape to the whole tasting, because there's a lot of interesting wood phenols in these other four, right? Like, there is we got mesquite, we got people talking about barbecue. There's really interesting wood phenols, which of course, like, oak trees have wood phenols. That's one of the reasons why we love oak. And so getting to show off like the extreme end of it almost brackets it in a way. So you get kind of a sense where you're tasting it and you're like, oh, this is what I like about these. This is what it would taste like if you went completely fucking overboard. And that's why I threw it in. And I didn't think it would be the pick, but I've been wrong before. But you guys anticipated it the way. Yeah,
it's still really good. It's still
fun whiskey.
It is.
It's really fun whiskey.
Even after you said that it's an Isla Scotch cask, and I'm going back to the nose, I still would pick mezcal. Like, if anybody watching,
totally.
if you want to equate, at least to me, the flavor of the nose on it, it's mezcal.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I said, like, this would really appeal. This would this would unite the
Worldwide.
globe.
Totally.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. Does anybody have the first glass sample FN36 as their first place pour? So we can eliminate that one.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and eliminate that. Nick, by the way, this was fantastic.
Mhm.
This was the one that Joe was talking about, the honey. I got the puff pastry with the fruit jam. I even got like a sweet tobacco note on it when I went back to it, which I also got on 4 as well, but in a better way. What can you tell us about Glass 1, Nick?
Level 3 char new wood. Do you guys want me to reveal the seasons? I'll do that at the end. I'll do it at the end, and I think that'll be interesting. So this is a level 3 char new wood. I put it first, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do with y'all, which was I thought it was possible it might be the favorite. I really did, and I thought it stood alone. A lot of whiskeys as the first whiskey don't always. They're better as the second thing you taste. But I thought this whiskey stood out on its own. But I thought it shaped the roller coaster ride that I wanted to take you guys on, which was something in the middle of the profile that I really wanted for these seasons. And then we took you down into the lighter profile of glass number 2. And then we hit you in the face with glass number 3. And then we showed you an elegant version with glass number 4. And that was the journey that I wanted to take you on. And it has been real fun watching you go through that ride. So yeah,
Is it fun when your plan comes to fruition and it happens just like you want it to?
It rarely happens. It's happened tonight more so than it really rarely. I mean, when I had this in my head, I was like, I think this is how this is going to go. I think we're going to get this vibe to this, and it's been a blast watching people's preferences, because I knew, like, I don't be lying if I told you I didn't have a favorite in here, but I like these for different reasons. So it's been interesting to see why people like the number 2, why people like 3, and why people love 4. So 1 set the stage and 5 bracketed it. So
this is definitely tied for number 2 for me. I mean,
I love it. Starting that out, it is fantastic. Yeah. So Roger says every time I see Nick speak,
Roger.
I really knows what he's doing.
Same.
Yeah.
Same,
Yeah.
Roger.
I mean, who doesn't know about phenols and all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and pitch this, because I think I'm reading the room right here. Justin and I think, can raise our hands that we're in love with Glass 2. Is it like that's a front runner for Justin and I? Like it's in the conversation to be.
I think you might
the selection
be the only one.
However, I do believe that the other 5 people we have on screen, this is not one of your front runners, correct?
Correct.
Dead
yeah.
last.
Not dead last.
Correct.
It's third place, right in the middle of the pack.
All right,
not dead last.
This one's going to be out. So I'll just say, I think it's it's definitely the most easy sipping. And again, like if it didn't have that crazy saturation, like this is a sweet tooth candy whiskey. Like it is wild how saturated, like anybody. Anyways,
so it's a simple, sweet, crushable whiskey.
But that's
just for me though, it is very saturated. But I think, especially off our first pick of Found North, I think people are looking for, at least from our end, something more, something a little bolder, something a little, you've never tried this before.
That's fair.
I'm tracking with that, Joe.
That's
Joe,
fair.
which one reminds you of your first like Found North pick? Like if you had to say X kind of reminds me of the first,
I would say number 1 reminds me of our first one.
Honestly, when I smelled number 1, the first thing that popped to my head was, oh wow, like let's run it back. And then I got to 3 and 4, and I'm like, well, these have elements of that too. Like honestly, 1, 3, and 4 are all kind of different versions of what we picked. And
I think 1 is the closest to what we picked last year. And then
in experience.
Would you say? Well, kind of in flavor too. I think last year had a little more spice to it. But overall flavor and experience, I think number 1 is the closest to what we picked last year. This is probably why I haven't tied for number 2.
There we go. All right, Nick, what can you tell us about the second glass sample FN9?
All right. So first of all, I'm obsessed with this whiskey.
It's so sweet and old tasting.
I absolutely love this whiskey.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I love this whiskey.
Nick, I think look right here, this vertical column right here. Hey, for a second, let's us right here and forget her. Let's sidebar. Listen, gentlemen, we need, after this, we are talking. Okay, Nick, tell us about
I'm obsessed with this whiskey. I do not and never anticipated this whiskey to be the biggest crowd pleaser. This whiskey, I love it for a couple of reasons. One, this is a season 1 refill barrel. So this is an ex-rye cask, and it's one of your guys' casks' original picks, sister casks. Sister cask of your original pick, but it's been refilled, so it has way less wood extraction. Why it's way more delicate. But the really interesting thing, and you kept talking about the saturation of the flavors, that's the fucking rye. The rye that was in there that pulled all of that new wood flavor. Yeah. It gets in this, and so you get this sweetness, but the depth of the sweetness is very, very, very unusual. I think it needs 3 more months. I think when the weather picks up and this gets a little more extracted, it's going to tip into having enough oak profile where it doesn't taste quite so delicate. I think it's just still a little bit delicate to really hit the profile that this thing's going to hit. But I'm obsessed with where I think this whiskey is going. It's not my favorite of the bunch, but I was like, when the two of you started talking about it, I was just like, oh my God, when we bottle this, I have to send them both a bottle.
It has the potential.
They're just going to see where this ends up, and it's going to be really fun.
Nick, whenever
We're
have
talking
to
off
do more of bottle 2, you let me know.
Yes. I got you.
Well, hold on, wait, just kidding. This one, real quick, could somebody put some internet person put the links to our channel and Judge's channel, and then Found North's website? Can you put those links in the chat, please?
I know Richie Z has already put a Patreon link for us in there. So Richie, if you could follow up on that if you're still here. And
man. Joe, do you have a Facebook for Mommy Valley Whiskey Society if anyone wants to join that?
Yeah.
Joseph.
Our website is probably the best. Just mommyvalleywhiskey.com. Website's probably the best because that'll link to all of our stuff.
Okay, cool. If someone could do that in the chat, that'd be great. Continue on.
Man, Nick, like that's a gutsy move to say, hey, we got this whiskey. We're gonna put it into this already. Like that's what you're talking about. Technically triple oaked, right? Like that's a triple filled cask.
It's already been in there. It's already been in there for almost 10 months. This has been aging for a long time. Yeah. This it needs it to heat up one more time so that it gets extraction again, because it's been a relatively dormant for the last 3 months. But when the temperature changes, this thing's going to start to peak, and we're going to pick it right when it peaks, and we're going to cut it off and say, here it is. Let's not let it get dry and astringent, which rye can do. It's just going to get a little more wood, a little more vanilla, and a little more integrated, and this sucker's going to be amazing.
I think 9 has the potential. Like for me, it's on that roller coaster. I just don't think it's ended. Like it hasn't reached the end of the journey yet, and that's the reason why I kind of thought that it's not ready for us. At least for me personally, it's not ready for me personally now. But maybe like in 3 to 6 months, this is gonna be a badass number 9. Whoever gets that,
banger. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
The only reason I put this behind Glass 5, which FN3, that wild one, is just because that one wild one is so fun. That's the only reason I put it behind it, because it's so fun.
That's fair. That's fair, Joe.
All right.
Very fair.
So I think we're down to glasses 3 and 4. Sample FN8, glass 3, and sample 4 or glass 4, sample FN35. I'm still torn on this, guys, because these are both so good.
I have a first and second place, like technically, but y'all, I wouldn't be mad at either of these winning.
I'm with my girl Erin. I'm with Erin.
All right.
These are both good.
Can I see a show of hands on who has a definitive favorite between these two?
Okay.
2 people. I don't. Anthony too. Oh wow, I don't.
Oh wow.
All right. So Judge, Aaron, and Derek are still figuring it out, right? Okay. Oh. Yeah.
I mean, technically, I've stated my favorite, but they're both so good.
Yeah, they're honestly, and I can't wait until Nick reveals what these things are. And like you guys, Nick is like a mad scientist, y'all. He's like, if you haven't picked that up yet, what they're doing, like the level of work they're putting in, what they've learned over the course of the years that they've been doing on it, like working on these projects, like they know what's up, you know, and they figured out like, let's do this way. And then because whiskey is more art than science, right, Nick? Like you can use some science to help you, but there is some art involved in that. Like we're putting this stuff into a barrel. We think we know what's going to happen, but we don't 100% know. And if it doesn't go the way we want it to, we kind of have to wait and see if it's going to turn around and get where we want it to get. But I think that 3 and 4 are both variations on the same theme. And so I can't wait to see how we vote on this, because I mean, neither are a bad choice. They're just like, what do you want? What is your end goal coming out of the bottle?
Can I have more of this?
Okay.
Oh, that's all we got.
Okay.
I need to try it again.
Nick, I need you to real quick.
Hang on, Josh.
Yeah.
Marcus, Judge, what you look like you're processing stuff in here.
Yeah, what's going on, Marcus?
There's a note in 35 that is so distinct. It has like almost like a chocolate coffee note. 35. So first and foremost, 35 and 8 are so good. You guys can pick. I can care less. I would buy numerous bottles. 35, I am falling because I just love it. Not as much as Mrs. Judge, but I love it right there. Even better than Peregrine, to be crystal clear. 35 is phenomenal, right?
Wow.
This is phenomenal. In my personal, humble opinion, is that good.
And for me, FN8, the nose is just far beyond, but the finish on 35 is just far beyond that. So I love them both equally. But if I have to choose, I'm going to have to choose 35.
All right. So Anthony's in on 35 as his vote, official vote.
Justin,
I'm gonna go start making some tally marks here. So
let me go last because I don't want to pick.
We've got one for 35. Justin, between 3 and 4.
This is easy for me. 100% 35. And the only other thing I want to say is next time you send me a sample pool, will you please send me a Z-Biotic?
Yes, I will. Zbiotics.com/stuff.
Yeah, get 15% off if you want to get some Z-Biotics too. Justin will send you some.
We took ours before this. Yeah, I should have included that in your sample pack. That was an oversight on my part.
I love that, Justin. That's too funny. That's too cool.
Dude, Erin took it. We did a barrel pick last week, and she was taking it at lunch before the barrel pick, and I'd already taken mine. And people were like, "You actually use that stuff?" And Erin was like, "Heck yeah, we do."
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Right. So, Judge, it sounds like 35 is your number one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Joe, is it fair to say that 8, sample number 3, or glass number 3, 8 is your number one?
Yep.
All right. So we have Anthony, Justin, Judge, and Joe accounted for.
Hey, Derek and Landon.
Landon and Derek. How are you guys feeling? Was it easy? Was it a difficult decision?
It was tough. It really was tough, but I'm going to go with 8.
Wow. Okay. Votes 3-2. Derek?
I'm with you guys. This is split down the middle. But I will say, I'm guessing there's a little bit of foreshadowing in Nick's future. You know, FN 8 or 9 for batch 9. Is that kind of what we're looking at here? Like,
don't read into it. Don't read into it.
I mean, just saying. Honestly, though, just initial score after everything, FN 35 it's got to be my number one. I mean, and it's splitting hairs. It really is. Both of them were just absolutely phenomenal. All 5 of them were phenomenal. Honestly, I would put the FN 36 on my bar just to show people when they came over. Hey, you know what? You want to have some fun tonight? Here we go. Let's go.
Yeah. Drink FN 36, and then it can get even better than that.
Absolutely.
Like, you don't even know.
Absolutely.
Wow.
But
all right.
Yeah, 35 for me has got to be number one.
Where are you? Are you 35?
Landon, where are you at?
Number 8.
He's at 8.
Wow. Okay.
He already said it. Did you not get it?
Wait. Hang on. First place is Joe and Landon for 8, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. I got distracted. Derek was talking, and I just I got enamored with the idea of people coming over and like having them taste Found North, that's what Joe did to me, and then I love doing it to other people, and yeah, I got distracted there. So, all right, so votes 4-2. Where are you at?
No, you're 35. So it's
no. Where are you at? I haven't said.
I don't want to. I don't want to pick.
Eric, we can't get
she may be the deciding vote.
I don't think so. I think it's 35. I think 35 is the winner.
I'm just gonna tell you guys. I'm gonna vote 35, and that's gonna give it the majority.
Woo!
Yeah.
Woo!
It is. I mean, look, guys.
Honestly, I'm not mad at it.
I said 35 was.
I'm not gonna complain.
Was like elegantly aged, like Aaron.
Oh,
so it's
extremely.
I got it 35 too now.
Just like you, Aaron.
It's
very elegant, just like you, Aaron. Truly.
Oh, thank you.
I do want to say that Joe and Landon are not wrong.
I do have a turtleneck on. Does that make me elegant?
It is. I do want to say that Joe and Landon are totally not wrong. I think either Derek or Anthony said this is razor thin.
Yeah.
Razor thin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
True.
There's not a bad decision in this bunch, but I think 35 is something that if you love a really well-aged, well-crafted, really complicated, complex whiskey that's sweet and dark and rich and just, you're going to love 35. You're going to love Glass 4 that we picked. 8 also has all those things about it. It's just a little bit more rowdy and brash and powerhouse. So it's all in what you want. Typically, I like a powerhouse, but
I want to know what these are now. I want to know what these are.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Come on, Nick.
All right. Oh my God. Okay. So you guys are picking between my two favorites. First of all, which I'm very happy about.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah, those are my two favorites. I had 36. I think Glass 2. I think FN9 could end up being like a world beater. I think it could end up being absolutely outrageous. But as they stand right now, my three favorite were Glass 1, 3, and 4. And I had 8 and 35 above Glass 1, but I really like Glass 1. Glass 1 is funny what Derek said. Glass 1 is like my crowd pleaser. Glass 1 is a whiskey that if somebody was like, what's Found North about? And I didn't know much about what they liked, I think I would just grab it and be like, this is what we're about. So I'll start there. Here I'm really gonna make you guys wait for a second here. So there was a question about ABVs. I don't know the ABVs on these because they've changed, but I believe they're all in the low 60s.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they're all in the low 60s, which is
Glass 4 is 120 plus proof.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Which is absolutely outrageous.
Scary.
That's in my wheelhouse.
Glass 1 and Glass 4 are both season 2.
Okay.
Glass 2, 3, and 5 are all season 3.
Wow.
Okay. Season 2 was originally a blend of 12-year-old rye, 16-year-old corn, 23-year-old corn, and 25-year-old corn.
Whoa, it's a lot of corn.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that is.
It's wild.
It is 70% corn, 29% rye. Now it's 29% rye by liquid, not by weight of grain, which matters a lot. If this were a mash bill, it would be almost 50-50. So the rye comes through. We keep our single barrels very high rye because the rye picks up a lot of flavor from the wood. So this thing is extremely high rye. Season 3.
But does it taste like a rye? So I want people to know that in the chat. Like when he says it's high rye,
it's not that spice herbal
it's
thing.
not what you think
like
when you
rye.
think
It's not herbaceous.
of rye whiskey. Yeah.
Yeah, not at all. Thanks, Aaron. That's a good point too, Aaron. Really good point.
This season 2, the original blend, 30% of it was in new wood already before we recast it. Just to be clear. Okay. Season 3 was 11-year and 8-month-old rye, 16-year corn, 23-year corn, and 19-year and 9-month rye in Hungarian oak. So season 3's got a little Hungarian in it, but there is absolutely no new wood.
Wow.
Okay.
Which is
That's
one of the reasons why the really interesting thing about season 1 barrels, FN35 and FN36, sorry, season 2, FN35 and FN36, is that they've taken a lot longer than the rest of the season 2 barrels to mature, which is often a good thing. When they get oaky too fast, we have to pull them, and they don't always develop their full profile because we're afraid they're going to get too tannic too fast. These just never dipped into being too tannic, and so we just let them ride and let them ride and let them ride, and they have gotten incredibly elegant.
Yeah.
4, I'm going to tell you 4, which you picked, and then I'm going to tell you what 3 is, because I think everybody's going to go, what the F? 4 is a Char 3 new wood barrel, and it's been in there since last April. It's been in there for a while. So this thing has had a ton of age on it, and it is now 12 years and 9 months is the youngest thing in there. Although granted, there's 16, 23, and 25-year-old whiskeys in there. FN8. FN8 is a new thing that we've never done at Found North. I'm very excited about it. It is new Spanish oak.
Oh,
That makes sense. That's where that spice is coming from.
It's
Okay.
so
That's where
good.
the spice
Yeah,
is
it
coming
does.
from.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is where Marcus's plum is coming from. FYI.
Ah.
I
great.
absolutely love it. It is a moose, and that's what Spanish oak does, because Spanish oak tends to be a little bit more porous. It's more porous than American white oak, and so it tends to just like it. Honestly, it tends to get a little over oaked. It didn't in this case, which is great. It hasn't been there it hasn't been in there quite as long, but that like. I put it in the middle because it's an absolute house of a whiskey. Personally, I think the one you guys picked is, on any given night, one of those two would be my favorite. Yeah. On a night where I'm feeling a little frisky, I think I would prefer FN8. On most nights, I think I would prefer FN35. And watching all of you come to pretty much the same conclusions that I had about this whiskeys, that actually doesn't happen very often. So it was very, very fun to watch.
Well,
very fun to watch.
I think that happened last year with us.
Yes.
We were pre-dead.
You guys loved my favorite whiskey.
Yeah.
I was feeling frisky tonight.
And I don't want it to be missed on anybody watching or anybody who's going to rewatch. Especially when you're talking about the whiskey industry nowadays and age statements, dropping or going away, and they're slowly starting to come back, and the prices of whiskeys going up. We're talking 12-year-old at the minimum. True. And then you're talking 16, 20, 25-year-old whiskeys in these blends. That's almost unheard of in the industry.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
The average age of the whiskey in the barrel you just picked is 17 years old.
That's
and
that's
crazy. To that point, while like I tend to, and I think I probably like a little bit more rowdy whiskeys more than the average bearer. So 8 has a very big appeal to me. But 35 is just so elegant and it comes across so well aged. Like when you say 17 years, if I was tasting this blind, my brain is going to like the middle point of the teens in age. Like it's reading really old, really beautiful,
but not over oaked. To Nick's point,
right?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
because I think for me, sometimes when the older the whiskey gets, like when you're thinking bourbon, American bourbon, when it gets older, it gets over oaked for me, and it gets too dry, and then I'm like, it's not for me.
Yeah,
but this is not that. This is like the best of both.
By far.
I got to tell you, Aaron, it's my favorite part about making these corn forward Canadian whiskeys is what, when people think about age, you can't just think like whiskey isn't just wood plus grain, right? Like it isn't the time in the barrel matters, not because of the extractive effect, but the time in the barrel actually matters because of what the oxidative effect does. What adding oxygen to the whiskey does to the whiskey, which the only way I can describe it is it makes it taste more integrated. It's not jarring, right? Sometimes you taste a whiskey and the shifts from one flavor to the next over the course of the experience of drinking the whiskey can be very jarring. It can be very abrupt, right? It's like it goes from this to this to this. A good whiskey, in my mind, a good whiskey will effectively, as one flavor is tapering off, the other is starting to expand, and then as that flavor starts to taper off, the next is starting to expand. So it ends up being a very integrated whiskey.
Yeah.
And I tend to find that in whiskey that has enough age on it. The problem that I have with American whiskeys is I want that integration of flavor, but I don't want the pencil shaving note at the finish.
Yeah. Same.
And the beauty of working with these Canadian whiskeys is that we get these components, some of which have been aged for a really long time in new wood, but often they've spent the first 10 years or the first 13 years or 15 years in ex-bourbon. They've been developing those flavors, and then you give them new wood on top of it. And so you get what you really love about that new American oak profile, but you get it on top of something that's already very well integrated and very layered. And that's our thing with Canadian.
That's something we've been talking about our last couple of meetups of the Whiskey Society, is that oxidizing effect of rounding out the overall flavor profile, and you can't replace time. So there's a lot of other companies out there that are trying to do a lot of pressurized speed aging. They're trying to accelerate that oak extraction, and they're getting that color, they're getting that oak extraction out, they're getting some of those flavors. But what you're missing, which is why they, like Nick said, they taste so sharp, is you're mixing that time and that oxidation effect, rounding out those flavor profiles. And that's the problem with speed aging and that kind of thing that some companies are doing.
100%. Yeah. Guys, this was an incredible evening. I only wish that there was a way for everybody to taste what we just tasted through. You would understand how difficult the decision that we all had to make was.
Some of you will get to taste the one we picked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
if you want to join our Patreons,
our
judges, or Mommy Valley Whiskey Society,
Mommy Valley Whiskey Society, the Bourbon Judge, us, all that information is out there if you're watching on these platforms. That's why they're released first. That's the way we do barrel picks. We release them to our Patreon communities. I think it's fair to say that I know Joe pours a ton of work, invests a ton of his time into their local whiskey society. I know Judge invests a ton of time into his channel. We do ours as well. Our Patreon communities make it possible for us to do these picks. So we just want to reward that level of support for supporting us, for supporting what we do, to those people first. And then if there's any available after the fact, they will get out into the public. Although the last Found North pick we did sold out in 3 hours. So who knows? Who knows? But, and man, last time it was like a butterscotch bomb that was just a ton of sweetness and fantastic. I don't know which I would prefer between this one and that one.
No, they're so good. They're different.
This one reads totally different to me. Joe, you can speak to this for anybody that's watching that has had both picks. I think this reads older, more well-aged, more elegant, and more complex.
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah. It is wildly good. So,
Nick's got something on that.
I think it's a hair thicker. I think it.
That's a fair point.
I think it's just got a little bit more thickness to it. I when I think about whiskey, one of the weird things that we do is we blend not just by nose. We actually taste the whiskey that we blend. That's actually relatively unusual in the industry. And one of the reasons we do that is we're obsessed with texture. I care more about how the whiskey feels on my palate than anything else. I care about how it feels on my palate and how the flavors transition. That's the biggest thing for me. And I think you guys picked a barrel that is like juicy thick and has really, really, like when we talk about elegant, I just think it's so integrated and the flavors progress through it in such a clean and beautiful way. I know it's late, so just bear with me for one more second. I think, like, I love tasting notes. If you ever go to Found North Whiskey and you read the tasting notes, I'm the asshole that writes all of that eloquent bullshit. I love tasting notes. It's one of my favorite things to do because, like, it's exciting to try to entice people to drink whiskey and give it kind of a shape when people buy whiskey and they're like, what am I expecting? What should I be looking for? I like to try to give that. But the truth is, I also don't love the notion that a whiskey is a list of flavor notes. It's almost like saying a song is a list of notes, right? It's like, of course, a song is way more than a list of notes. How those notes are integrated and composed together creates a whole new thing. If you have a single note on a piano, and then you play a fifth is not just those three notes, 1, 2, 3. It's all of them played at the same time, and that completely changes the audio experience. Flavors the exact same. The way the flavors actually integrate matters much more than the list of the flavors.
Yep.
And so I think you guys picked a whiskey that not only has really interesting individual tasting notes, but I absolutely am obsessed with how these ones happen to integrate and work together with each other.
So Brian Bikey's commenting in the comments that Nick is preaching right now, and I know he's preaching to Josh because he's pulling on Josh's heartstrings right now.
Dude, I'm
Josh
telling
is
you
like
what,
shaking right now.
Nick is like there's nothing, and like this is, I don't mean this about anybody whatsoever, but like there's nothing that drives me more crazy when I hear a whole bunch of tasting notes, but I don't know if you like the whiskey or not. Like, I need to know if you like it. Like, tell me, do you like it? Do you like it or not? And like, Brian is really good about this. He'll let you know if he likes it, and he'll also give you a cavalcade of tasting notes. Like, I don't think there's a better palate than Abandoned Bourbon. By the way, separate and side part from what we're doing here tonight, picking an amazing barrel for you guys. Abandoned Bourbon YouTube channel. Brian has some of the best. Like, he's one of the best palates, and it makes sense because he's actually a trained professional coffee taster.
Oh,
yeah.
Ooh.
Which, Brian, when we're in Louisville next time, we're coming to Quills. We'll talk.
I want to be a professional trained coffee taster.
We've been to Quills.
So
that's
we
some
have
of
been,
Brian's work.
We have been to Quills.
Yeah. So Brian.
Brian.
What? Brian and I text almost daily. I just called him Brandon. Now I'm getting flustered.
I'm sorry.
Right?
I got you all off kilter.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
But anyways, nonetheless, check out Brian's site his YouTube channel.
Abandoned Bourbon at YouTube.
Abandoned Bourbon.
Yes.
He's right here.
Nick,
Just go.
Golly. All right, guys.
Josh is feeling pretty good, right, Josh? I hear you.
You know what? I'm just.
Oh, and Mrs. Judge, thank you, Mrs. Judge.
There's too much stuff going on here. Okay, I've got Brian in the chat, who I'm enamored with. I got Nick down here, who I'm enamored with. What do you call Joe?
Your boyfriend.
Right. Justin's my brother from another
I said,
mother.
oh, Josh, are you texting your boyfriend? He has Bill Kavanaugh and Joe Carter are Josh's two boyfriends.
Justin's my brother from another mother. Me and the judge were boys, and we're so thankful to have each and every one of you guys on screen here, being a part of this tasting with us.
Wait, we have two questions. I know it's late.
Oh, yeah, we
have two questions. Can I please?
We do.
Okay, let me show this one. ETA for getting this whiskey to my mouth.
Good one.
I gotta bottle it. So
Yes.
I gotta pull this out of the wood and bottle it, and I need to proof it, and I need to get the labels printed based on what that proof is. So it's not going to take too long because there's not much going on in the beginning of the year because everybody's always fucking hungover from OND. So we should be able to whip this thing out in less than, certainly I hope less than 3 months. I'm hoping 2 months, something like that. If we do it faster than that, you can thank not me because it's not my job. my team is absolutely killer with this stuff.
Yeah.
Things take
What
time.
was the other question?
The other question was, Nick, what's the average yield on a barrel pick?
Oh, all right.
Good
That's
question.
a great question. That's a great
really
question
good question.
because you hear the age of this and you go, okay, there must only be like 30 bottles, right? But the thing to remember is when we effectively create the season, we start the entire angel share all over again, right? Because we fill this thing to the top. Well, not to the top. There's a little head space, but the kicker is you lose about 10% of the liquid in the first 6 months. It's especially with new wood. The angel share that they talk about in Kentucky and Scotland, yeah, they're full of it because what they're doing is they're amortizing it over several years. The fact is, most of the angel share is actually the wood absorbing the liquid. It's actually mostly the devil's cut. So we lose about 10%. That being said, it's 10% from the top, not 10% and then a percentage every year for the next 17 years. So we usually are getting around 40 cases on these on these things. So it's a hefty. It's not your typical Four Roses barrel or something like that where you're getting 120 bottles. This is going to be a full daddy. This is going to be a big boy.
A full
nice.
daddy.
You know what? When
music
Nick,
to
when
my
you're not
ear.
around on screen, that's what when I'm talking about you to Aaron, that's what I call you.
Full daddy.
Full daddy. I actually love that. I've never said that term before in my life. Swear to God, it just popped into my head, and I absolutely love it. And you can call me full daddy as much as you want.
I got a question here.
Yeah.
Landon.
What does Found North look like for 2024?
Oh, baby.
Ooh, good question.
All right. First of all, if you want to know where these I literally just smacked myself in the face with a pen cap. That's really impressive. If you want to know where the other barrels end up, I am potentially going to use FN8 as a DTC pick. I'm thinking of direct to consumer. That might be a Found North only release. I literally thought about not sending it to you because I like it and it's weird, and that makes it for an immediate candidate. So if you haven't signed up for our mailing list at foundnorthwhiskey.com, you better do that if you want to get your shot at FN8. But beyond doing a few interesting direct to consumer releases, Landon, we've got a bunch of stuff in the works. Sammy and I have already been in the lab for a couple weeks in January. We've been making our next finished blend. So, for those of you who don't know much about Peregrine, which we just released, Peregrine is part of our high altitude collection. Our high altitude collection is defined by whiskeys that we do a blend, a finish, and then we reblend it a second time. We're going to do more than just Peregrine. We're going to do a couple of these kind of style whiskeys, different maturation profiles, different ages, and we'll release at least one more of those this year, if not a couple of them. We have a batch in the can right now, as in we've finished the blend. We're deciding when to release it. That part of the puzzle is always hard. Marcus is going to lose his mind when we release it. I'm just calling it out right now.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
Yep. Marcus, what was the first whiskey you ever tried from Found North?
Like for Found North?
Yeah.
Batch 4 technically, but I fell in love with 5. 5 is like my old school.
All right. I'm just teasing that.
Ooh.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, the tease on FN8 being a direct-to-consumer pick, that I'm going to be watching the emails.
Yeah, Mrs.
Judge
put foundnorthwhiskey.com in the chat. Sign up for their newsletter email list, right, Nick? And that's how they'll know if this.
Mrs. Judge won a lottery.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, she did.
Christmas was so good. Christmas was so good to me. I had a bottle of I'm sorry, I have to jump in here. Second Summit. I opened that bottle and I was like, holy shit, like you are the best wife in the world. It's so good. So good. Like amazing.
Judge emailed me. She was so excited, and I was so excited because she was like, "It's me, Mrs. Judge." I was like, "Oh, baby! Oh, this is so exciting!" And so hopefully Mrs. Judge wins another lottery because there will be at least one more Second Summit. Second Summit of Batch 7 and Second Summit Batch 8 are currently aging, and one of them. One of them is damn close, and it is outrageous. It is absolutely outrageous. So that's enough for now. There's more. We're making a lot of whiskey. We're just deciding how and when to release all of it. I'm pumped. I mean, I'm really pumped. I feel like the first year we were trying to sort of figure out what we were doing. The second year was we were really trying to like figure out what we're all about. And I feel like we've hit our stride now, and I'm super excited for what's coming down the pipeline.
So Josh AW in the chat, he was talking about a batch, but I think he might have the name for the pick, the Full Daddy.
Full Daddy.
We'll talk about that backstage. Everybody stay on the screen because we got to figure that out. I mean, I don't know what we do. I don't know what else we could possibly do, but we'll figure it out backstage. Thank each and every one of you guys for being here on, like, in the chat, watching. We appreciate you.
Thank you for showing up on a school night too.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
We appreciate the heck out of you guys. You know, this is going to be split between 3 communities, but as Nick said, it's a full daddy. So we're pretty good on, you know, getting some bottles out to people, but our last one did sell out in literally 3 hours. So, you know, we're going to do our best with this one. We want as many people to taste this amazing whiskey as they can possibly, like, as many people can get their hands on it, the better.
Yes.
Because,
and if you can get your hands on it, if you're part of one of our communities, either Stuff and Whiskey, Maumee Valley Whiskey Society, or the Bourbon Judges community, I'm sure somebody's willing to share.
Yep.
So I know this community is awesome with sharing. So we'll make sure everyone who wants to at least taste it gets to taste it.
Perfect. All right, we're going to cap it there, guys. Everybody on screen, stay for a second. We'll talk backstage. Everybody else, thank you so much for being a part of this evening. This was absolutely wonderful. I'm personally mad at Nick, and we're going to hash out some beef in the backstage because he gave me my literal hardest barrel pick I've ever done. There was no clear winner. They're all so good. So, but yeah, we got to go and come into you guys.
Yeah.
Talk soon. Cheers, everybody.
Night, guys. Cheers.
Appreciate each and every one of you.
Night, everybody.
Cheers.
Good night.
Guys.